Okay, tactical analysis of Aston Villa versus Paris Saint-Germain. It was actually a pulsating, riveting, and intriguing masterclass of European football yesterday. Do you think Luis Enrique did a fantastic job yesterday, or do you think the second half of Unai Emery was more of a tactical genius? I think the latter is the answer to the question, because let's start with the team shape in the tactical analysis. The team shape, Aston Villa pulled up with the 4-2-3-1, and then Paris Saint-Germain pulled up with the 4-3-3. So the 4-2-3-1 that Aston Villa had actually helped them a lot, because it was helping them to create an overload in the midfield, and sometimes even making it up to 8 players in the midfield, because Luka Dean and Cash were tucking into the middle. But something happened in the first half. PSG, I think they knew this already and were exploiting it in transition. They were keeping their wingers high up the pitch and not asking them to do any defensive duties, meaning every time in transition they were outnumbering Aston Villa 3-2. Now in possession build up, you can see that Aston Villa were building up with a 3-2-1-4, and then Paris Saint-Germain were building up with a 2-4-4. Now the 3-2-1-4 that Aston Villa were actually building up with in the first half was not really very good, because what it did was it created an overload. But most times when they lose the ball to Paris Saint-Germain, there weren't enough bodies in the midfield to counter the press or to counter the transitional ball that Paris Saint-Germain were playing to their winger. So in the first half, that formation actually played into the hands of Paris Saint-Germain. And then in the second half, Unai Emery tweaked that formation and moved from the 3-2-1-4 and now started playing a 3-3-4. So meaning they had 7 men in attacking position, and this was actually countering whatever transitional moves PSG were trying to make. So I think this made a very big difference in the second half. Now out of possession again in the first half, Aston Villa were doing a 4-5-1 and PSG were doing their basic 4-3-3, and then they switched to a 4-5-1 in the second half again, which I think was a mistake from Luis Enrique. In the first half, whenever Aston Villa were attacking, Paris Saint-Germain were keeping their players up front. Now, if you watch the first goal that Paris Saint-Germain scored, you're going to notice that the 3 players were all up, and then their fullbacks were overlapping. So the 2 goals they scored was because of the fullbacks, which were inverting and trying to cover up the spaces and try to meet up with the attacker. So I think this was actually very good in the first half, because Aston Villa were not picking out the fullbacks. But this was something they did much better in the second half. And then in the second half, Aston Villa were able to score 2 extra goals because they were overloading Paris Saint-Germain. Because I think if you let Paris Saint-Germain bring the ball into the middle, it's difficult to stop them. So for you to stop them, you have to stop their defenders from playing out. So I think this was what Unai Emery did in the second half, which made it a pulsating game. So a pity that Aston Villa couldn't go through, but I was really rooting for them because I'm a big fan of Unai Emery. Tell me what you think of this tactical analysis of mine in the comment section. Thank you very much.